Welcome to Pagoda Podcast, where we explore ideas, strategies, and insights to help businesses grow and scale.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine spending like a decade building a multi-million-dollar business, getting a buyer to the table, and then watching them walk away at the 11th hour, all because you couldn't find, a single operating agreement.
Yeah, that is a brutal scenario.
Right. So today we're doing a deep dive into the exit blueprint, specifically looking at the critical documents every buyer demands.
Okay.
And if you're planning to sell, or even just weighing your options right now, waiting to organize this paperwork until a buyer shows interest is, well, it's the single biggest risk you can take.
Yeah, and that risk, it isn't just about the deal falling through. I mean, it's about valuation. In mergers and acquisitions, the initial documents you present, they basically set the anchor for trust.
Right, they set the tone.
Exactly. Buyers don't start by looking at your fancy marketing materials or your product pitch. They start with the numbers.
Which brings up that classic leaky roof analogy from the sources, which I love. Like, if I'm selling a house and there's a visible water stain on the ceiling, the buyer doesn't just walk away.
No, they start doing the math.
Right. They mentally deduct like $30,000 for a new roof, even if the actual patch job is cheap. And messy financials operate the exact same way. But I do have to push back a little bit here.
Okay, sure.
So if a business owner can point to a bank account that is clearly growing month over month, like the business is clearly making money, why are buyers so obsessed with the exact formatting of profit and loss statements or, balance sheets?
Well, because a growing bank balance doesn't actually tell a buyer how the cash flows or how sustainable it is. Buyers, and honestly, more importantly, their lenders, they need perfectly clean P&Ls and tax records so they can run discounted cash flow models.
Oh, so it's really about the modeling.
Exactly. They're looking to calculate legitimate add backs. So like a personal vehicle lease or maybe a one-time equipment purchase. If you hand over a chaotic spreadsheet, they can't accurately model those add backs.
And if they can't model it?
They discount the purchase price. They discount it heavily to compensate for that perceived risk.
Wow. So clean formatting literally protects your valuation. But I mean, a perfectly formatted P&L only proves the business made money historically, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't prove it will keep making money once the founder hands over the keys.
Yeah, that's the big transition issue.
Because if the entire operational playbook lives strictly in the founder's head, the buyer isn't really acquiring a turnkey asset. They're basically buying themselves a highly stressful job.
Right, and that is exactly where operational documentation comes into play. So buyers look at standard operating procedures, SOPs, to measure transferability.
Got it.
They need documented proof that, the supply chain, the customer service protocols, the daily fulfillment, all of that can survive the transition without the original owner driving every single decision.
That makes sense. But it's also about who is actually buying the product, right? Because you could have flawless SOPs, but if we look at the customer data, revenue concentration can be a massive vulnerability.
Oh, absolutely.
Like if 40% of your gross revenue comes from one legacy contract you signed 5 years ago, that's terrifying for a buyer.
Yeah, it completely changes the risk profile. Buyers will totally scrutinize customer lists and contracts just to ensure they are acquiring a wide, stable base.
We want stability, not, a house of cards.
Right. They're always modeling the worst-case scenario. Like, what happens if that one major client walks the day after the sale closes?
Right.
And without documented, diversified customer data, lenders will often just pull back entirely.
Okay, so we established that the financials protect the valuation and the operational docs prove transferability.
Yep.
But getting a deal across the finish line usually comes down to the legal and compliance paperwork, which, from the sources, seems to be where the real deal killers hide.
Oh, the mechanics here are absolutely brutal. Legal documents like licenses, intellectual property assignments, operating agreements, these are the literal scaffolding of the deal.
Wow, the scaffolding.
Yeah. In due diligence, if you're missing an original operating agreement from, say, when you first formed the LLC,
Just one document.
just one document, a buyer's lender simply cannot underwrite the loan. The capital freezes instantly.
That's a complete roadblock. So you can't just, promise you own the IP. The bank requires the paper trail to secure their collateral.
Exactly. And on the flip side, having all those compliance records neatly organized in a data room from day one does the exact opposite.
It speeds things up.
It massively accelerates the due diligence phase. It signals to the buyer's legal team that you run a tight institutional-grade ship.
So looking at the full picture we've painted today, I mean, the through line is incredibly clear. Doing this groundwork isn't just some administrative chore.
No, not at all.
It is how you create leverage at the negotiating table. When you bring clear, organized documents, you build immediate trust.
Which naturally means businesses that do the prep work up front don't just survive the due diligence process.
They thrive.
Yeah, they sell faster, and they command a significantly better value.
So I want you to think about your own operation right now. If a sophisticated buyer walked into your office tomorrow and asked for access to your data room, what story would that paperwork tell them about your reliability?
That's the million-dollar question.
Exactly. Are you a turnkey operation, or are they going to spot a leaky roof? To learn more, visit www.blackpagoda.com.